You probably don't get told this enough, but simply just dealing with everything with a tough guy mindset is not going to be the answer in the long run, and it's only just going to lead to a lot of emotional instability. Instead, what I want to do is show you guys a totally different approach that I've done for myself and the clients that I work with, that have brought them back into a balanced emotional state, which then actually makes them emotionally resilient, allowing them to move forward through challenging times, chasing their vision, and actually getting things done. The first question I have is, how do you view your emotions? And this is actually a question I ask often because, you get different answers, but oftentimes I come to the same usual types. And the one thing I get told a lot with the clients that I work with is they view their emotions as something that is controlling. It is oftentimes just coming in at whim and just derailing their plans. So for another way we can say it is, they feel like they have no control. Sometimes they also view them, or they view some of them, as bad. And I'm not perfect here myself. I've had the exact same view of emotions for a very long time, just given the way I've grown up in the society culture I've been around, usually deems particular emotions as good and particular emotions as bad. But one thing you have to understand, and this is super, super important before we actually continue, is that emotions by themselves are trying to give you a message. They're delivering information to you. And it's hard to think of them this way because sometimes emotions get tied up to stories so vividly and with such intense passion that it's very hard to see it as that way. And oftentimes you can see it as something that is trying to inflict damage upon you, but it's not. And again, when I say delivering information, what I'm trying to say is, let's say, for example, you had an experience, or let's just use a personal example. Anger. For me, anger was something that has been always part of my life for a very, very long time, and it's sort of like the go-to reaction. So I presumed it was something bad, something that is trying to hurt me and abuse me, but in reality, the message it was delivering is that there was unresolved conflict. Now, this unresolved conflict could be stories of your past, something that happened to you, or things that have happened to you multiple times, to then start to kind of brew and ruminate in that emotion. It could be that you've been bullied. It could be that you've been taken advantage of. Whatever it is. But there was something that happened that started to instigate and create that emotion to be an attachment. Because oftentimes it serves a purpose. It serves a purpose to help you recover. It serves a purpose to help you move forward. Or maybe balance you up by getting revenge or what have you. Every emotion has its own little story to tell you. But again, if we go back understanding that emotions deliver information, and the information is trying to tell you is there's unresolved conflict with yourself internally and with the stories you tell. Now, by no means does this mean that the stories in your mind are not true or false or none of that. They're real stories. And some of them are actual events that happened that have now led to these sort of behaviors. Or it could be an event that happened, but then going forward, you created new future predictions as to what can happen that can bring forward those emotions again. And so you want to avoid them at all costs. But the question is, how do you deal with this unresolved emotion? How do you deal with this types of stuff? Well, that's going to be for another whole new video. But the one thing I want you to try to understand is that if the emotions are delivering information, you have to ask, what is it trying to tell you? And you want to just ask yourself. I do this exercise with my clients all the time. When they bring up particular emotions they feel often, and it comes up on a weekly basis, simply just ask them, what is it trying to tell you? What unresolved issues are you dealing with that it's saying, I need you to deal with this? And for the most part, you know what it is. It's just a very difficult thing to actually come forward and deal with because it's painful. Maybe it's painful, maybe it's sad, maybe it's tragic. And it is very difficult, so you don't have to take it, you don't have to deal with it all at once. And sometimes it takes weeks and weeks of talking, working on strategies to actually help move forward and make peace with it. But you have to start by beginning to ask this question. The next thing to understand is, how do you actually build emotional strength? What does that look like? Well, in reality, to build emotional strength, it isn't through focusing on one particular emotion and doubling down on it, which is a common strategy that most individuals do. And especially those of high achieving ambitions, they typically find that if I just put my head down and just grind through it, use maybe a little bit of anger, use a little bit of frustration, that can keep me moving. Unfortunately, that is just going to throw everything out of whack internally. And you can feel that. You can feel you're not in a balanced state, oftentimes through big emotional swings. So if you're finding yourself going through huge swings every once in a while, where you're feeling great one day, and then all of a sudden, maybe in a couple weeks or a couple days, what, you swing in a bad emotional state, and you just find yourself constantly going back and forth. And so that is just oftentimes a signal of an imbalance. You've hyper fixated on one particular emotion. Now, if I'm going to list out some of the emotions, and then what I want you guys to do is have a little exercise that we're going to do. It's going to really help you flesh them out and understand them a little bit more and give each one its opportunity. Then I want to also talk about an approach, a mindset that you can look at emotions with that's done wonders for myself and obviously the clients that I work with. So first off, you have the basic 5 emotions. So the basic emotions are happy, sad, anger, fear, and disgust. There's subcategories in each one. By that I mean happy could be joy, could be love, so on and so forth. But these are the main emotions that you tend to bounce between based on what's going on in your life. Now, for the most part, well, the first exercise I want you to do is write these down, and then on a journal, tell yourself honestly, which one do you have the most intimate connection with? So you are quick to that one. You can channel that emotion almost instantly. And also, I'll make myself the guinea pig here. So my personal emotion that I've gotten a lot better with now, but at a certain point in my life, it was brutal. It was anger. Anger was a very quick reaction. I was bullied heavily as a kid. So there was always that little bit there. And so it caused me to quickly react to it. But the anger was just signaling to me, if we go back to the previous writing, was what was it trying to tell me? Well, there were certain unresolved issues internally that I had to deal with. I wasn't speaking up for myself. I was very passive. So if something were to happen to me, and there was a conflict situation, I would typically capitulate and give the moment to the individual, just give the grounds, give the real estate. And I felt in the moment that, oh, that's the right thing to do. But however, if I did that every single time, which I did, it ate me up. It was absolutely frustrating. And what happens is there's other emotions that are being suppressed. Everyone knows of that terminology. When you suppress something. So when I was feeling certain emotions of anger, the anger was more so towards me saying, why aren't you speaking up for yourself? And that anger I was trying to push away because it was like a bad thing. So I was trying to push away, not listen to it. But what happens when you suppress an emotion? I use an analogy of a balloon. So you take a balloon, okay, so I'm going to beautifully draw water here. So you got water like this, and then we have a balloon. It's a pretty good balloon. Nice. And now imagine if you take this balloon and try to use your hands and submerge it under the water. Well, what happens? Well, and this is without helium, just air, normal air. You push that balloon under the water, it's going to resist and try to come back up. Needs to come back up. And the more you try to push it down violently, the more violent it wants to come up. But what's really interesting is you can't know when it's going to come up or where it's going to come up, I should say. It can come up in front of you. It can come up from the side. It can slip and come out through your leg behind your back. And what that means in a practical setting is if you've suppressed a particular emotion, something along your day, along the weeks, someone can say something that normally isn't that bad, boom, makes you snap, makes you flip, or makes you go into a state of heavy fear, whichever is your emotion of taste, your favorite. It could be sadness. It could be a heavy hit of sadness all of a sudden, right away, pew, just smacks you. You don't know what to do about it. And again, that was simply because it wasn't being dealt with, acknowledged, just pushed down underneath the water. Eventually it's going to pop up and there's nothing you can do about it. And so the first step is understanding which one is your particular emotion. And then the second step is going to be which emotion outside of this one have you completely neglected and haven't balanced yourself out with. And so oftentimes for me, it's within this category. I wasn't balancing out the love aspect of my life. I was kind of pushing it away, ignoring it, just being hyperfixated on this one. And what happened? It threw me out of whack, threw my balance not in a good state of alignment, and then everything just kind of, it affects the lens to which you see the world. It changes the way you see everything and your interpretations of how you see everything. And so the next step is, once you understand, okay, which one haven't you exercised enough? Which one have you completely neglected? And then what you want to do for the next 30 days, you're going to exercise the emotion that you work the least. You're going to exercise the emotion you work the least in combination with asking yourself pretty consistently, what is the emotion trying to tell you, the one that you're attached with the most? What signals, what does it want you to resolve? Now, this third step is really important. It's actually going to be probably one of the hardest ones, is that you cannot show judgment, frustration, anger toward yourself if throughout this exercise things don't really go as planned in that moment. It's going to happen. There's going to be bumps along the way during that challenge. However, by bringing in self-lashing, it's not going to hurry up the process. It's just going to set everything back. And so the third step would be show yourself constant grace and forgiveness. And this one's really slept on. Oftentimes I find, as we're doing the exercise and we touch base on my clients when we meet up every 2 weeks, and I say, how are things going? They often bring up the fact that they were showing a lot of resentment to themselves. They were getting very angry that they weren't getting the results they wanted. But again, we're not looking for results right now, although it would be nice, it'd be great. But it's not going to hurry up the process. I repeat it plenty of times. I'm saying it twice just because it's so important. It's not going to expedite the process. You're not going to get better faster by doing that. Just sets everything back. So again, show yourself grace and forgiveness. And then re-summarizing everything, work the emotion that you work the least. Exercise it more. Give yourself chances to feel it. When it comes up, allow yourself to feel it. Because you want to look at emotions as something you want to be agile with. You're staying in your center. Imagine yourself in a good athletic stance. When you're in a good athletic stance, you're ready to juke left and right, forwards and back at any given time. You're prepped and ready. And so that's how you want to feel and look at emotions. Emotions are something you want to jump into, jump back, jump into, jump back. Give yourself the moment to feel it. Because once you allow yourself to tap into each one when it needs you and when it's calling on to you and you give it that attention, you dealt with it. You'll feel like you dealt with it and you'll feel at peace with it. And so you'll come right back to your center where you're going to be more calm and able to stay on target with what you want to do, with the things you actually want to work on, the things that actually move you forward towards your vision. So staying in that emotional agility and that state of quick movement reaction. And again, you don't jump into it, expect it to come back quick. You jump into it, give it its moment. And then when you give it its moment, you will come back to center. And the more you do that, the more you exercise that for 30 days, you're going to notice a massive, massive difference.